What's up, freaks? It's your boy Marty here to introduce this rip 355 of TFTC. Great rip. It makes me very bullish. The stuff that's going on the Lightning Network is insane, and there's very competent builders coming to the Bitcoin Lightning stack to bring consumer usable products to market. I sat down with Jared Nusinoff from MASH to talk about what they're building and a bunch of other things. Very stimulating conversation. Hope you guys enjoy it. Okay.
This rip was brought to you by our good friends at Unchained Capital. We're draining the exchanges, freaks. Get your coins off of a centralized exchange and into a 2 or 3 multi-sig vault with Unchained. They're running a deal. They're waiving for the vault product for the concierge onboarding for the vault. They're waiving the $1,000 Bitcoin purchase for anybody who doesn't want to do that immediately. And they're just going with a $250 setup fee and concierge onboarding experience. If you use the code TFTC, you're going to get $50 off, bring that down to $200. And they're also dropping the onboarding onto their IRA down to $250 and also offering $50 off that onboarding concierge experience as well. Using the code TFTC with the IRA, you'll still have the setup fee if you decide to set it up. But their consultations are significantly reduced with this deal. We're draining the exchanges, freaks. It's time. Don't let these centralized third-party exchanges hold your Bitcoin. You really have Bitcoin IOUs. They're single points of failure. We've seen Celsius get rugged, Voyager get rugged, 3AC rugged the world. Don't get rugged. Drain the exchange. Make sure that you're holding your own keys. Unchained and their vault product allow you to do that and have peace of mind. I'm a customer. I'm a happy customer. And I have that peace of mind. Join me in the peace of mind world. Drain the exchange. Promo ends September 8th. Use the code TFTC. You'll get $50 off. Go to unchained.com/concierge. This rip was also brought to you by our good friends at Braiins. Braiins is here to just make you a better miner at the end of the day. They have the Braiins OS Plus firmware, which helps you idiot-proof your mining operation. If you have an ASIC that's compatible with Braiins OS Plus firmware and you're not using it, you're an idiot because you're leaving sats on the table. If you download Braiins OS Plus firmware on an ASIC that's compatible with it, it's going to help you stack more sats. Only idiots don't stack more sats. So Braiins is here to help idiot-proof your mining operation. They also have Braiins Pool. It'll be officially Braiins Pool in about 11 days here. The oldest mining pool in Bitcoin's existence, still going strong. They're working on Stratum V2 to further distribute the mining pool layer. Go check it all out. Braiins.com, Braiins.com. Not only do they have all these products, if you use Braiins OS Plus firmware and you point it at Braiins Pool, 0% pool fees. And then go check out insights.braiins.com too for all your mining data and calculator needs. This trip was also brought to you by our good friends at HodlHodl. HodlHodl is here to bring you a lending platform that's peer-to-peer, no KYC, no AML. What you do is you put your Bitcoin up as collateral on a 2 or 3 multi-sig escrow. You hold one key, your counterparty in the loan holds one key, and HodlHodl holds the third key. Since you have one key, you have visibility into the escrow account, so you know that your sats aren't being rehypothecated. And if you're paying your stablecoin loan back plus the interest, you're going to get your sats back at the end of the day. Yeah, and Bitcoin up in 2 or 3 multi-sig escrow as collateral, you get stablecoins in return. You go spend those, and as long as you're paying that back plus the interest, you're going to get your sats back at the end of the day. Reminder, no KYC, no AML. Go to lend.hodlhodl.com. Peer-to-peer, baby. This rip was also brought to you by our good friends at Upstream Data. Upstream Data is here to basically take care of your mining needs, whether you're an at-home miner or a company that's mining at scale upstream on the oil field at a utility. For the at-home miners, they have their black boxes, which allow you to put miners in a box, mine at your house, outside your house ideally. You close the box and it takes care of the sound, and it's heat controlled to make sure that your miners aren't burning out. It really is a much needed tool if you're mining at home, especially if you're worried about your wife or your HOA being concerned about the noise. ASICs are really loud. They go, put the ASICs in the black box. You close the black box and it goes from to shh. beautiful thing. Use the code FREAKS. You'll get 5% off a black box. And they're also selling black box bundles if you want to get ASICs as well. Upstream will help you do that. Go to shop.upstreamdata.ca to check out the black box. And then on the back end, if you're an industrial miner, if you're an oil and gas operator, utility company who's making a lot of profits as energy prices are going up, you're looking to diversify into an alternative revenue stream, Bitcoin mining is there for you. And Upstream Data is here to build out the infrastructure for you. You'll get the data centers, you'll get the generators, you'll get the miners. I'm a happy customer of their hash hut. I have a 50 kilowatt hash hut. It's been running flawlessly for many months now, at least, coming up on a year. No problems at all. Just have to change the oil. Steve just posted a picture of their first ever Bitcoin mine that got released in the oil field 5 years ago, still producing Bitcoin today, still chugging where it was initially launched. These things are very durable. Upstream's building with miners in mind. They know what they're doing. Very high quality product. Go to upstreamdata.ca. Tell them that TFTC sent you if you're going to get a hash hut. Last but not least, this rip was brought to you by our good friends at CrowdHealth. You go to joincrowdhealth.com/TFTC. You'll see the special deal that we have running with them, which is if you use the code TFTC, you're going to get your first 6 months of payments for your CrowdHealth community down to $99 a month. It's a significant discount. And what are we doing here? CrowdHealth is an alternative to health insurance. It's not health insurance, so it's community-funded healthcare. So what you do is you sign up for a CrowdHealth account like my family did, and you pay a monthly fee, and that goes into a dedicated bank account that you control, and you can always take the money out of whenever you see fit. You build that account up. If you ever have a medical expense, you tell CrowdHealth, hey, I'm going to the doctor. They say, all right, get the bill, show it to us. You get the bill, you show it to CrowdHealth. They negotiate with the doctor. And then if you do have to pay an expense, all you do is you pay the first $500, and then the bill goes out to the community, and that gets crowdsourced. You get CrowdHealth. 100% of the bills that have come to CrowdHealth have been funded by the community. And again, I think this is a beautiful way to have more sovereign, more transparent interactions with the healthcare system. The fact that you have a dedicated health advocate at CrowdHealth is really reassuring. I have one person that I talk to in regards to my family when we're doing any of our healthcare needs. I'm able to hit up Maggie, say, hey, here's what we need. How should we go about this? And they're there. It's personal. It's not just some call center. It's not a black box like health insurance. They're there to fight for you, to lower your healthcare costs at the end of the day. It's a very incredible model, in my opinion. I'm very happy to be a CrowdHealth customer myself. Go to joincrowdhealth.com/TFTC to check it out and see how it all works. Enjoy this rip, freaks.
You've had a dynamic where money's become freer than free.
If you talk about a Fed just gone nuts, all the central banks going nuts.
So it's all acting like safe haven.
I believe that in a world where central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency, Bitcoin wins. In the world of fiat currencies, Bitcoin is the victor.
I mean, that's part of the bull case for Bitcoin.
If you're not paying attention, you probably should be.
Up there. I came back for this week. I'll fly back Sunday. Then I got to go to Latvia next week.
What's in Latvia? Oh, is that the is it the conference or?
Yeah, the Baltic Honey Badger Conference. Should be a good one. HodlHodl team's throwing. I went in 2018. It was very, very high signal. It's like Amber Alert knows when we're going live, car. They just get random.
I was in Latvia, I was probably there around the same time, but didn't know anything about Bitcoin, like effectively traveling. But the Baltic states like Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania are awesome.
They're beautiful.
Good time. Yeah.
I mean, Riga, where the conference is, it's a very interesting town because it's like your quintessential European brick paved road with like very tight roads you can walk through, and then it's just mixed in with like brutalist Soviet architecture. It's just like a hodgepodge of communist and capitalistic architecture.
Yeah, it's and also just the timing of the development for it. A long time ago, I did a bunch of studying on like how different cities evolved and like whether there's like rivers or it's an island or this or like the distance to get like fresh milk and eggs. It's like, oh, we had a wheelbarrow. The city could expand this far. This is the size of the streets. We can do a horse carriage. Now we're going this way. And so like you look at all these cities and it's so interesting. Or like why LA? Because there's no like rules on what you can build anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just full sprawl.
No, that's something I got really into a couple of years ago. We had Chuck Marone from Strong Towns on, and he wrote the book Strong Towns, basically diving into the subject, like how do you build a strong town from the literal physical design of the city, and then utilizing that space to eke out as much revenue as possible per square foot. And in the beginning of Strong Towns, the book that he wrote, he's from Minneapolis, and he essentially described how Minneapolis became to be a city. It was just a bunch of lumberjacks hopped off a chain, started cutting down trees, and then they had to build housing for themselves, and they built a post office, then a bank, and then it turned into Minneapolis.
I didn't know that about Minneapolis. I'm just thinking about, it's like it was probably the St. Lawrence waterway, which is like why Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, they're all on sort of the same waterway with the lock system. But then it's also where all the farms were. And then we just decide to pave over all the good topsoil. It's like well,
it's the rot of fiat. It destroys money, but then destroying the money destroys the incentive to build strong towns and build for the long term.
Yep. And drives regulatory capture.
Yes. We're finding that out very, very aggressively right now.
It's like, are we live? Or
yeah, we've been live for like 5 minutes.
Oh, fair enough. I had no idea.
We like to ninja launch it on people.
There we go. I was waiting for the go ahead.
Yeah, Car sneakily went like this.
Oh, I had no idea.
He'll just do that. Car will just sneak in on you. If he sees we're having a conversation, he's like, all right, we're going live.
Cool. All right.
If you guys are not sitting down with Jared Nusinoff from MASH. What's going on, dude? You said you didn't get it. You weren't in Bitcoin in 2018 yet?
I was not. I want to say probably 3 touch points with Bitcoin before I really like dug in and looked at it beyond just the surface level of what is this thing. So there was once in like maybe 2012 when I was at Google, and another product person came up to me. He's like, have you seen this Bitcoin thing? Maybe it was 2011, 2012, something like that. What do you think about it? And I like to believe that I was smart enough to say, I don't know anything about this, so I can't really comment, but there's something probably interesting here, or maybe something to that effect. I'm probably giving myself way too much credit. And then it was maybe even like 2017 when it was ripping up, and I'm just like, and it's like taxi drivers are talking about it to me. And I'm like, okay, this means FOMO. I still don't know what this is, but it's also been around for this long. So there's probably something here. And then I actually left tech for a few years, was running sort of a real world style travel business. And that got, I want to say pandemicked, right? Like international long form travel in Canada, cross provincial borders, already tons of regulatory capture. And then I just spent, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spend the next like 3 to 6 months figuring out anything I can about all these things I've heard about that I haven't had time to really dig into. And then it was sort of once I read about, really dug into what Bitcoin was. I was actually like, I'd go on like walks for 3 hours and listen to TFTC, like lots of old different things with different topic, like different guests and a bunch of other stuff. I was reading, you name it, books across Bitcoin, started messing around with all the Lightning apps that existed then. And it was like, it was a holy shit moment. This is all I'm working on for the rest of my life. And then you mapped it back to all my different experiences with like how different content was monetized, the trustworthiness, the quality of it, all the incentive structures that drive a lot of the behavior and a lot of reasons why certain things exist in the way that they are. And sort of went down the journey of now just building MASH. Yeah. And it was sort of like, it just like every single time it's just like, you hit one piece, like, oh, we can do this. Oh, we can do this. Oh, this means that. And it sort of fell into place.
Yeah. So MASH is, for you freaks who are unaware, it's a product that I'm very interested in because I've been toying around with this stuff too, which is monetization of content using the Lightning Network on the web. And you guys have built a pretty robust, how would you describe it? Because you got wallet infrastructure, you got API calls. It's essentially making it so you can monetize any type of content.
Yeah, it's like,
and beyond content, it's bigger than content too.
Yeah. Well, we wanted, so there's like what's our guiding principle is sort of, we want to remonetize the web. And then we want to do that with sound money and Lightning because it also has the best technical properties and monetary properties to be able to do that. So programmable, scalable, trust minimized, censorship resistant, sendable anywhere around the world. It has clarity in terms of what it is in the space, and there's embedded density. Like you can use Bitcoin in a variety of different ways everywhere. So you have this all interoperability. So that's sort of why Bitcoin and Lightning. And in terms of our service offering, so you can look at it today. So what do we want to do? We want to enable anyone to charge for anything to earn their value properly. And so that's like sort of like an abstract concept. And what does that mean? So let's say you're a creator or a mini app developer. You want to build a platform for really like a marketplace for sharing content for communities, you name it, online. We want to say, hey, we want you to be able to charge for all these different types of experiences, whether it's a content reveal of something special, whether it's voting for something, whether it's to send a message, anything, and then make it easy for anyone to be able to pay and earn both ways. So allow a consumer to say, oh, I now have a wallet. I can use it in this site. I trust this site. I trust and can control my money. And I can take and move it out in and out wherever I want. And then make it the easiest way possible to do this for different people. So, oh, I'm a consumer. I don't have Lightning. How do I get it? Buy a wallet, get some Lightning, and then you can load it up with any different platform or service back into it. Oh, I don't want to use Mash wallets for X, Y, and Z. Send it out. And then if I'm a creator, it's like, here's 10 different pre-built things you can use. There'll be a lot more. Let anyone build things that can use the platform, like completely agnostic from us in many ways, and just help facilitate that relationship. So we're in many ways like a wallet provider, a coordination of, like, I want to say content payment system between parties, and then a platform to build on top of. It's sort of the ways I'd like to describe it.
Yeah. I mean, considering you took the deep dive a few years ago that have come out and built this product, it's pretty impressive. I mean, like you said, you've dedicated your life to it. Is Mash building on stuff that you're working on when you were at Google or in the tech sector? What were you building there?
So actually, that's part of the reason why I left tech for a few years is at Google. I joined in 2010 at the beginning, like I think it was April. And I joined on the strategy side because I was a consultant for a few years at a school. I'm more of a business background than technical background. I have done technical things, but I'm not a software developer. But after that, I did a bunch of work in display ads. So location, formats, tracking, targeting across the stack. So it's like, what do you want to do? It's like, oh, let's add more zip codes. Can we legally do it? Sure. Okay. Like that doesn't feel so good, but you can target ads better for certain segments. And then it was make like ad formats that work for your local gardener, your local plumber. How do they actually buy an ad that works for them so it doesn't go to like one big roll up private equity company that bought all of them and now becomes the middleman on the middleman, right?
Yes.
Google's the best middleman of all time. Let's just layer on another one that leverages Google to then take all the money from people who are doing the actual work, who are producing the productive members of society. And so we're trying to help them do it directly, which is a very, very hard problem to do and solve, not just technically, but also from a sales and go-to-market perspective. But I guess what I learned there, sorry, that was a long rant on that. But what I learned in that piece was all of the places these ads were showing. The quality and content, like I experience it from my personal hobbies and interests, but it's like, oh, it's like we're just going to go on an SEO farm site, toss these ads in. People are not getting quality content, but that's how they're monetizing because they can trigger SEO and get all the volume. So it sort of leads to a corruption of content online. And then from there, I spent a bunch of time doing mobile apps for Google Fiber. So a lot of consumer experiences to understand how people understand and use products. Like I'd go literally, I think I actually did it once in Austin, probably 2016, where I like would go to people's houses and watch them use our apps and how they use them on their own or how they use them to engage with the TV. So it was a TV product. And just understanding how people think and when they use products and what they want. And definitely what we're building at Mash builds on top of that, but I'm learning every single day. Like beyond that, like you have to know your specific use case, your specific users. There's no like general concept. It's all like, what can you do for these specific people? That's amazing.
Yeah. And how do you think, based on your experience with the ad world and the product world at Google, now building Mash and leveraging Bitcoin and Lightning, you mentioned like the SEO farming and the perverse incentives of the ad model. How does Bitcoin and Lightning switch these incentives over across the experience on the web in your mind?
So if we start, I'd like to start with the problem is that to make money online, there's sort of, let's just simplify it into two models. You have ads, which means you need millions of users to show up to your site. And it generally means you need to break the algorithm for SEO. You have to find a way to beat it. And people in large companies are spending tons of time to beat that. And you still have a challenge if it could be niche or it could not relate to as many people, and then it just won't monetize that way. So the alternative is let's charge for it, right? Let's do subscriptions. Let's do prepay. Let's bundle it. And that makes sense for lots of things. Like if you can do that for certain products, I think that does make sense. Now, there's always this concept of freemium or try before you buy. And you can, if you have money, and so now, what does Bitcoin provide us with Lightning? You have money in a site, in a website, in an app. That's not just enter a credit card. It has to be $20. It's I can stream 5 cents or 100 sats, whatever your unit of account for how you think about it. But you now have money in it. So it's let's look at a parallel. It's think of like the arcade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Been to a lot of arcades this summer.
Okay, the original arcade is like you have quarters in your pocket. You put your quarters in the machine. You play the game. You leave and you're happy. You use your money. You go buy, some barbecue down the street. Whatever you want. I'm just thinking of barbecue because we're staying right near Terry's, and my entire room is literally just smells like a brisket, and I love it. But I'm also hungry all the time and eating way too much. And so now this model is also in many ways has sort of been proven online in a sort of roundabout way. If you think of like the App Store originally with iOS, like people wouldn't buy an app for $10 because you didn't know what you were going to get. You'd look at the reviews. You can't trust the reviews, right? Mm-hmm. You look at the commentary online. Majority of the time, you can't really trust that too because of those perverse incentives with ads. And then they came up with this concept of, we'll give you the game, a bunch of it for free. And then you have to buy tokens in the game, but you can use it in the game. It's sort of like in-app payments for games, right? But because the reason why it worked for games was you could get a minimum love for that thing. And they'd also trick you with like casino style strategies, right? Which isn't good. There's always unintended consequences with these things. But now you could say, I'll load up and I'll use $10 of the credits and I'll use it. There's still a purchase commitment barrier. But now instead imagine it's like, there's this one really amazing how-to guide of how to run a Lightning node connected to my phone in a self-sovereign way. Like here's how to use Zeus. Here's how to get a gun umbrella up. Here's how to use my node. And you could actually earn, whether it's 20 cents a head, 25 cents a head, that is so much more than you're making on ads already. And you don't have that person being like, am I going to buy this course for $80? Because that's a lot of what people have to do today. So you can at least create a lot more people that are earning their value and sort of unlock a lot more quality content online that will have their own discovery engines based on that. Because if you know what people are paying for, you generally know it's good. And that can help people discover it. And word of mouth will actually help a ton. Like people go to sources because they are trusted, not through a search engine. Like you look at the results on Google right now, they're not good. They're bought and paid for.
Yeah. No, Google's, I know you used to work there. I don't want to denigrate your former employer, but it's completely captured by those who are willing to spend and can gain SEO to their advantage.
Yeah. It's always a battle back and forth, but when it depends on what they're focused on, right? It's like verticalized search, which they've had trouble being able to enter or buy companies to do. It's like, why did they buy a company? To get all the flight data, right? And so, or knowledge graph. There's really good information there, but you want to find like, you get in, you get into barbecuing, like, right? Like I've been messing around with barbecuing. I'm not just saying that because I'm in Texas. Like I have a Weber Smoky Mountain, like trying to find the right sources to be like, should I do for ribs, the 3-2-1 method or whatever it is? It's like, maybe that's a bad example, but
I'm a big fan of the 3-2-1 method myself. You've got some critiques.
I don't know. I haven't perfected my method. I tried it once and it was like, I'm like, this is too much work. I'm going to just go and spritz. It is. I mean, so diving down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. So that's like one topic of contention in the content monetization via Lightning Network space. Like we do it on this podcast, Podcasting 2.0. Freaks stream us anywhere from 5 sats to a couple hundred sats per minute to listen to this. And this comes back to the concept
of Nick Szabo's microtransactions and micropayments. Like, he doesn't think that that's actually a scalable model or a viable model in the long term, because the mental cost of trying to calculate those micropayments on the go doesn't make sense. I think this may be one of the few areas or topics that Szabo covered that I may disagree with, just because I've seen it personally work for our business and the content that I'm producing, whether it be the podcast via Podcasting 2.0 or the newsletter, which we've recently put up a 25-cent paywall for some of the newsletters. If I write more than 3, anything after 3 in a week will come with a 25-cent sat paywall. And people are paying it, but is that... Maybe I'm not completely convinced that Szabo's wrong, but I'm beginning to believe he may be wrong there. And I'm trying to gauge, I'm a Bitcoin-focused media company. We've been experimenting with the Lightning Network for 4 years now, which is hard to believe. Is it just confirmation bias? Bitcoiners are coming to our content and spending because they want to support us. And therefore, they may be like, it may not be signal in terms of the model actually working out. It may just be a bunch of enthusiasts interacting with us. But once this gets to the broader, gets beyond the Bitcoin bubble and into the broader economy, does it make sense at scale, in your opinion?
I have a few. I want to comment on a few things there. First of all, I'll start with, like, what you're saying there just is a community that really enjoys your content that wants to contribute for it. And it doesn't have to be Bitcoin. So you're saying that's a proof point for any community-based experience where there's interaction and engagement. And I think so. Whether it's Bitcoin or not, that might be some of the experimentation to try Lightning the first time, but continuous engagement. That's what you all are doing. And I don't think that's Bitcoin specific. And the other one is, I always for some reason I always call it Nick Szabo. I guess it's Nick Szabo. I've never really heard it.
Szabo goes, there's tomato.
But I've had this actually article write up, because I was asked about this, I think in some of my first pitches or conversations about this. Well, Nick Szabo says micropayments don't work. And I sort of wrote up this, like, a skeleton of an article, just basically being like, Nick Szabo's wrong, and here's his points, and here's exactly why. And I sort of like have it sitting there. I'm just not a writer, and end up not being top of stack. So I think Nick Szabo's wrong. And if you look at the article, and I'm going to probably butcher it because I haven't read it in probably a few months, there's a few points he makes about mental transaction costs. So one is like the text messaging problem. Like, how much am I going to spend to enjoy all this stuff? I don't know. This is too hard. Okay, I'm not going to do it. Like usage-based pricing without a cap, sort of like a pre-subscription. And that's solvable with UX, right? You can say, after this amount of money, then the rest is free. That's, and that takes away that mental transaction cost. The other one is, the cost of spending, like, I'm trying to think of the example he did where there was like, was it insurance rates, or it was like data usage per minute, and people can't, like, it was like comparing electricity rates and like usage-based pricing versus not, and how people don't change their habits with, like, are they going to use the dryer in the morning or the afternoon on different pricing, right? But that's a very complicated decision for a small amount of money with a lot of math, but saying, and sort of trying to make those decisions all the time, or like, am I going to pay 25 cents for this one thing? You can solve that with a concept of a budget, being like, okay, just pay every single time until I hit this certain amount of money. And then you still have that one mental transaction of, yes, so I'll pay for these things up to this amount. It's a higher amount, but you get the benefit of knowing, if I don't like this, I won't keep on paying because I won't use it. And I think that's foundational here, because you're still making that same big decision, but you have the benefit of knowing you're not committed. Your money's not gone. You're not saying, that huge commitment barrier of $20 to subscribe per month for something. You have to really, really like it. But instead of being like, hey, it's 10 cents an email I send you, I'll send you max 5 a week. And after X amount, then it's free. And like, I know the math didn't work there, but so I think he's wrong. I think it's solvable with UX. It's been proven in games already.
What are some of those examples?
Like, think about buying I think like Candy Crush tokens, like buying little mods for 10, 20, 30 cents. You're buying information, you're buying add-ons, buying like a plate or an MLB The Show to like not have to grind for like 80,000 hours. Like, that's infeasible. You have all these little payments that are working.
Yeah. And what do you think this does? I mean, I think I agree too. I mean, Szabo, his content is obviously foundational to a lot of the thinking of Bitcoin as a robust distributed system and the incentives involved and social scalability. But yeah, when it comes to micropayments, I think just from my experience alone, I think the listeners of this podcast and the people that interact with the newsletter are proving that wrong in real time.
Yeah, and it's also, this was written so long ago, and where the internet doesn't exist in the way it does today. And so to think of the cases of like, oh, all this community generated content, they have like 50 million, 100 million people creating all these things online, all these mini apps, all these tools, like seeing where you would apply this model. It's like, you could say maybe some of his concepts are like applying it to like email services or like API usage. Maybe it doesn't apply there because you're going to spend a large amount of money anyway. So you don't need like programmatic streaming money. And so, like I would say he's wrong. Like maybe he's right in some of those applications he was talking about, but I think he's wrong in where things have gone with how content is distributed. Like, what is it? Was it Dickens who was periodicals originally? Like it was serialized content, like every week. This has happened before. It's just we're sort of shifting back to an unbundled world.
Yeah. What does that mean for the content economy, if you will? What is this going to enable for smaller content producers, for larger content producers? Do you think it creates a higher quality content overall on the web? Do you think it makes it easier for people to turn their side gig into their main gig?
100%. I think it flips everything. Not everything. Sorry, that's such a bold, like grandiose statement. Everything will change. No, I think it unlocks a lot more people to create really high quality content that's about the value they're providing, that's trustworthy, and earn a living by doing it. It's really hard to find a niche that you can actually do that. And I think this is a way to do that, or at least be an add-on to, whether it's not the content, whether it's like an interactive or engaging experience. Like you could say, I'm trying to think of a few examples. Like there's lots of little fun things that people can do. Like, let's say you're a certain type of creator, like, I'm going to change my avatar to one of these 5 things. You're going to vote with sats. Half goes to this charity. The other half goes to me and the winner at this time. And like people can vote like with any amount. You've never been able to that's a different form of spam control. It's interaction spam control, but for like a purpose. And so you can do all these new things that you've never been able to do before that can drive, I think, community relationships and engagement that aren't just like pay $20 like to get a shout out, right? Like I think people can still do that, and you can do less of it, but you can do a lot more.
Yeah. So how does it work from the content creator's perspective, integrating Mash into their platform? So like we have our site hosted on Ghost. We're using that. Many people are going to be using WordPress. Some, unfortunately, will be using Drupal, other CMSs.
Yeah.
Is it CMS specific? Can it be any type of site? Is it just a code injection? What's it look like?
If JavaScript works, it will work effectively. Okay. So you take 10 lines of code, like you create an account with us, take 10 lines of code, copy and paste in your site, and now you have a wallet that any Mash user that has money anywhere, it just is usable now in the site. They don't have to download anything. They don't have to do anything. And if they don't have Lightning in there already, they can just, like we said before, they can buy a wallet, or they can load and send Lightning in with an invoice, and they can always send it in and out.
Yeah.
And then let's say you want to wrap certain pieces of content and have it paywalled. You can just, like, we have little web components that you can wrap, and you basically put your content in there. You can use an SDK that says, like, if you're doing server side content, that it pulls it down. And there's a bunch of basically pre-built things you can design and structure how you want. So you could, like, we have a few products like on the donation side. So Boosts, I think, is interesting, where people just click it. Every single click is just a 5-cent donation, and you can spam click it. And then you find out which articles, which content people actually like the most. So you can learn what people are contributing to you optionally. Sorry, 1 second. I have something in my throat.
You're what? No, it's fine. I had a coughing fit on the episode that we did yesterday. It was quite embarrassing. Not saying that you're being embarrassed right now. But.
No, I'm just trying to think of, like, it's like an itch. Anyways, so let's say you want to have like a behind the scenes YouTube video, like unlisted YouTube video or audio, or hosted anywhere. Doesn't matter where it's hosted. We'll be able to have, if they have an embeddable player, we'll just create a wrapper around it where you have to pay, and then it starts playing. There's a bunch of other things that that are coming down the line, sort of like a community tip jar, just copy and paste it, create your thing. Or those voting widgets will create a generalized voting one where you could tag and have like votes on different things, and you have like different leaderboards. So there's lots, but it's like to integrate it, you can create basically be like, I want to charge this for Lightning articles, this for Lightning videos, charge this for Bitcoin deep dives, charge this for chapters and how to guide, create your pricing scheme. Decide if you want to give a certain amount free per month. Decide if across your site, after people spend this amount, you want to make it free. And then you just copy and paste a few snippets of code where you want them, and that's it.
Hell yeah. And then you guys are managing all the Lightning liquidity on the back end?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're handling all of that. Our platform is built in a way to do like bring your own node across everything. But making that like infrastructure ready and actually really usable is a little bit tricky. But so we're working on it.
So when you say bring your own node, you're going to allow users to.
So right now, like we're managing all the nodes, and you can like let's say you earn $100 with Mash Day. Okay, you could just go in and send it out. We'll have automatic withdrawals. But if we connect it to necessarily to your node, making that work, like that's possible. Like we've shown demos, we could do that. We can actually do consumer node. Like let's say Car's paying you like on the site. We can manage that. You both have your own nodes, they're own connected. We don't touch anything. We're just coordinating sort of the payment system. But that, like, do they have freebies? Did they reach the max amount? What's the price of this? Sort of talking to everything to manage all the invoices. Like we can technically do that, but having that infrastructure ready right now is pretty tricky. And so long story short is we're managing all the nodes, but we have a pathway to get there. It's not a big lift. Like we have demos of it just to show it off. Like so if people wanted to do that, like we could do it. It's just making that for like anyone can do that. You can imagine what happens if the node's down. What happens if payments don't work? What happens if there's like liquidity issues that we can't like make sure are working, or then we can have like backup systems that we'd have to build out. But it's not we have the problem like solved. We just haven't built it in a production ready way.
Yeah. So eventually people will be able to bring their own node and just use Mash as sort of like an invoicing and
a relationship manager of sorts.
Yes.
Like we're like a payment, like a payment coordinator.
Hell yeah. And then are you guys as a company focused on accumulating as many sats as possible as well?
So I guess there's two answers. There's personally for me, yes. In terms of like company balance sheet, is that more the question?
Yeah. Like, are you guys
like, do we have sats on the balance sheet? Yes. Do we have to make sure that we can match like the denomination of our expenses, and not sort of screw up our runway in case something catastrophic happens? Yes.
Yes. No, I know.
So it's really like what percentage allocation, and then what runway do we need and are we comfortable with?
Yeah, but are you guys getting sats flows from the activity?
Oh, yes.
Users?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have to, it's not, there's a few things, right? Well, we don't want to charge like, oh, it costs this amount to implement. It's like anyone can sign up and just start using it. And we also want to help users get onto the system to be able to contribute as quickly as possible. And so you have this funny thing of, okay, so buy a wall for $15 and we're going to give you $15 of Bitcoin at this exchange rate, at the exact exchange rate, right? So that you have the exact amount, right? That's your bonus for being an early consumer at Mash. So we make sure that you can get it access. But now if you're like, oh, transaction costs are this is that, then like people won't sign up. So we'll eat all the transaction costs, which can be like 5+%, which isn't a lot, right? What's 5% on $15? It doesn't matter if it's one user, but if it's 5 million users, then it starts adding up. So we were just trying to get it so money's flowing through the system. We'll take a percentage and get as many people using it and spending money online as possible.
Yeah. What's that onboarding process for both users and content creators, or consumers and content creators, been like so far?
Like in terms of like friction points, or
yeah, like how are you guys getting the concept of Mash out there, number one, and then getting people to adopt it? What's that process been like?
So I'd say the first year was mostly, I'd say, product discovery calls, like me talking to people in a variety of spaces, same with the other people on the team, and making sure we could build out the infrastructure to do a lot of these things in a way that would work with them. So there was a team of 5 of us, right? a designer, 3 engineers, and myself. Recently, we like expanded the team as we're getting we're now production ready, and we now can integrate and have all these things work and be like easy and not like really, really hard for our users. We have like someone join on the business go-to-market side. We've added 2 more engineers. Is that it? I think it's 8 of us. And we built basically, we want to build a system that anyone can just sign up and start using Mash. And so in terms of our marketing activities, we're just starting that now. It's really been relationship building, conversations, and hasn't been really too aggressive on the let's get everyone on board with Mash. But that's sort of going to kick up now that we feel we have a compelling product. And the feedback that we're getting from the people we're working with has been really positive.
Yeah. What are people saying?
Well, I feel like it's like what's on Twitter, and like this is really cool. I think the boost thing really wows people a lot, especially people who haven't seen Lightning. Is they're like, wait, I just like have money in the internet, and I just clicked the button, and I just said thank you and sent 5 cents. I'm like, they're like, can I get it back? I'm like, no. They're like, where was that sent? Somewhere around the world. Like what? And it sort of blows people's mind. I think, yeah. It's hard because we have like let's say like 10 or so sites live. I just need to look back. I don't even know some of them. And it's just like there's a bunch more coming down the line. So we're really excited for it.
Yeah. How do you see this evolving? Like eventually, because like we're still very early. I think we said that before we hit record. Lightning's still early. Bitcoin's still early. Lightning's earlier than Bitcoin in its growth phase. But eventually, like in your mind, like what's it going to take to reach that critical tipping point where content creators and users get comfortable with this model, not only comfortable with it, but begin to prefer it over the traditional model?
Time, touch points. They just need to experience it and see it and try it. And it needs to be easy, like the easiest thing to do, like easier than loading a credit card into something, which is also complicated and a pain still today. And they need to realize that what they're getting is quality and trusted. And I think it will take some time. And what does it take? It takes, folks like you experimenting with it. It takes the entire community of people building with Bitcoin and Lightning to get as many experiences that have a similar model in people's hands, so they can see the value of it. They can try it. And I think it'll become natural. Like I think things are moving, it's like technology and human behavior. It's like, it's changing like very, very, very quickly. It's different than 100 years ago. Like it's very fast. And once as I go back to it, what was the biggest challenge I think like I had when talking about Mash with people or explaining it was like, how do you explain this thing? And we've worked very hard in trying to craft a story of like usage-based pricing, pay as you enjoy. But there's these concepts of like Bitcoin, it's just my money, no one can take it. It's in the internet. I can send any amount of it anytime I want. I can send it anywhere else. Like these concepts of like open movement and interoperability are very foreign. But the second you say, okay, go try like Jesse Berger's Magic Bitcoin book. So we like launched his book as a proof of concept for like, each chapter costs X amount. After a certain amount, you get the whole book for free for the rest of the month. And once you had people doing it and they'd be like, oh, they clicked like their keyboard to the next chapter, and because they had a budget, they're like, it just auto unlocked and you saw the payments flash in like a quarter of a second. Like, did I just send money? I'm like, yes. And like, then they're like, okay, I'll do that. And then we'll get a bunch more books and we'll do more stuff in those spaces. So it's really just socialization, touch points, getting people to try it and seeing which ones have the best fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be massive because it just makes a lot of sense. And like you mentioned, it is probably number one, an education and awareness problem. And then number two, UX. And that's like one of the most, promising things about Bitcoin Lightning and the stack that's being built out in terms of like innovation. Like there needs to be whole new experiences built around payments on the web. And I've said this many times on this show. Like if you're a designer, particularly a UX, UI designer that's looking to make your mark on the world. Like, here is a wide open canvas that
Yeah.
needs people to come focus their attention on and build new experiences and user flows. And it's wide open.
Yeah. It's a hard problem though. It's like anything that's so, I fully agree. It's like there's so many trade-offs and different approaches to how you structure it. There's so many different products and new experiences you can create because you have this. It was like a year and a half ago. I thought, I'm like, am I too late for this? I swear. I'm like looking at this. I'm like, there's like these 10 companies, they're doing these things. Like, these are so cool. And then I'm like, a year into it, I'm like, no, am I too early for this? Like, it's just because it was so incredible. What was just like what I saw that was possible. And I think it's the best kept secret. Like, we're in a bull market for Lightning. It's the best kept secret. I think, like, for technology today, that most people don't realize what it is, but even like some of the people I'm talking to that work at different companies that are large and not, they're starting to see it. They're like asking me, and it's like, oh, here's a starter pack. Go do these 10 things, try these 5 different products, go do this, send me an invoice, send you some money. And you're starting to see people realize it, but it is so early, and we just need more people building in the space to create these experiences. We'll get those billion users because this tech is unparalleled.
Yeah. No, that's one thing that goes through my mind a lot too. Are we too early? Which is, because we spun up our first Lightning node in 2018, I believe, like right after it launched. We had our site up and it had Lightning integrated by like May or June of that year. We've been running with it ever since, and definitely not too late, but are we too early? Like, is this, obviously we're seeing it with like crypto and all the tokens on Ethereum and the overarching cryptocurrency space, pump and dumps and stuff like that. Are we in the .com era of Bitcoin's history? And if that is the case, do we have like another decade before this hits critical mass? And if that is the case, how do we continue to survive, build out what we're building? Similarly at MASH, like, if we are a bit early, how do you approach that potential scenario in terms of like building out your product and making sure that it just survives and is around for when that tipping point does eventually come?
I think it's only too early if we're not able to solve, like, get to product market fit, provide really amazing solutions for people. I look at it as like, for MASH, we're in charge of our own destiny if we're too early, because the concept of Bitcoin and Lightning isn't going to be the deterrent. It's the products that we provide. Bitcoin's like probably one of the biggest known brands around the world. In tons of countries, it's trusted way more than their local currencies, and it's sort of, maybe it's sort of an unknown, but that gap or chasm can be bridged. And so really, it's just, I think, is it too early because there's not enough people building other interoperable experiences in the space, and that sort of helps, like tides lift all boats, perhaps. But I think we can make our own destiny, by the decisions we make. It is harder because a lot of the infrastructure that's needed to make it easy for anyone to build Lightning isn't there. We're working on like lots of other companies are working on ways to provide those solutions. But, one day anyone will be able to spin up and add Lightning and wallets and different things into their experiences and sites, and there'll be lots of offerings there. So I'm like, I don't know. I second guess myself, and are we early every once in a while? But I'm like, no, we're just moving forward, and at least we're not working in the space that is clearly just burning money with no product and no real plan of where they're going.
Yeah, the product's definitely there. It's definitely working, and it's definitely innovative. And so that's another thing too. You mentioned regulatory capture earlier, and as we build this out, obviously Bitcoin only works if it's sufficiently distributed, censorship resistant, and really empowers the individual to do what they want with their sats on the internet or in their everyday lives. And so as you're building MASH, how do you think about making it as small of an attack vector from a regulatory perspective as possible?
I'm thinking about how there's lots in there for how we're thinking about it. So one is in an ideal world, everyone has their own nodes. We're a facilitator in our product service, full layer on top of Lightning. Lightning is completely abstracted. And that's why we architected our system that way. The other, so that can help with censorship resistance. It can help with people, having access to their own funds and their own destiny. There's that part. And then there's the other side of, how we help like do these managed nodes and help people with their funds is, we don't want people to have money on our system. Like the first thing is like, we don't want to, it's like Mash isn't a place to be like, oh, like I have 2 Bitcoins. Let's just toss on there. Like, do not do that. Do not do that. Like this is meant to be like for a consumer, I have $10 to go spend on stuff. And if I want to get 10 more bucks in there, I'll just load it up and send it from somewhere else. And so there's that piece, but it's such like a complicated, I think it's like there's so many different vectors, right? You have like Bitcoin as like money. And there's that vector, which I think is like the most important piece. And then you have like services like Mash, which might be ways to monetize for content and creations. But then if it's not like the thing that you're allowed to talk about, how do we keep ourselves away from that problem, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a tricky question.
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah, because it feels like we're caught in the middle of this great battle for freedom in the digital age and an ever encroaching regulatory global body that wants to constrict that freedom. And it's just, this is something I think about, and obviously I've talked about obsessively on this show for years now, is how do we not kill the golden goose? But no, I think, and like you just described, everything comes with trade-offs. Like don't put 2 Bitcoin in a Mash wallet, but $10, okay. Like if somebody comes and tries to prevent you from spending that, it sucks, but it's $10. And there's ways to build experiences and, more importantly, user tendencies and mental models of how they use their Bitcoin in different situations.
Yeah. Oh, and the other, there's one part that I sort of glossed over because I don't think about it as much anymore. But we made a decision. It was both a business decision, but it also does as well help for like censorship resistance and et cetera. Is you don't go to like getmash.com/ name your creator and everything is there. And now they have to load everything up onto our platform and we own it. And then we can like, sorry, you're no longer online anymore. Your identity is canceled, right? You add Mash to where your stuff is into your experience. And if you don't like us, you kick us off. And if we have some other issues, you can replace us in lots of different ways. That's sort of the goal, is that we're providing, we're not a way for people to, lose their work and their savings. We don't want to be that provider. Like they can use any CMS and so that's sort of part of it. So you can imagine like, you get like YouTube, it's like, oh, sorry, you're done.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of centralizing powers across the entire stack of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like I was just telling you the episode that just went live right before we started recording. The stuff that Miles is doing, the stuff that he's talking about is probably going to get him kicked off these platforms one day if he keeps poking the beast. And that's what we're saying, like video content, the TFTC, like putting we're doing it right now for the newsletter content, but how do we do it for video as well? Like if we get kicked off, you've had strikes on our channel for talking about naughty things. And then you like have the issue. Yes, we can host it, a video on our site and paywall that, but then everybody has to go to our site, and there's like value to the platforms that Google, YouTube provide, and that's like the big question. We talk a lot about balkanization in the physical world with the trends that are going on geopolitically here in the United States and globally. Is the meat space world going to begin to balkanize and have jurisdictions break up into smaller jurisdictions? And then alternatively on the web, you have YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Do we see a balkanization trend there where users probably don't have the luxury to go to a single site like YouTube to find all the content they want? Are they going to have to have a list of individual content creators that they go to their site and consume there. That was a long rant.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how to respond, because those are the big questions. And it's, I guess part of it is those platforms help with distribution. Mm-hmm. They help some with monetization if you win their algorithm party. And they get, and they help discovery. Then the other part is owning your audience. And I see them both, they all work together, and there's going to be new platforms showing up. They're not as, video's trickier than other ones, but there will be other platforms that will show up for discovery. I just look at it as once you have, different communities and signals for quality, and people will look and find places where they can get information that they like better. It's a slower process.
Yeah. No, that's what I think. The trend of like individual blogs will come back.
What was it? It used to be like, okay, you went on Google, you search. It's like, oh, great result. I never knew I could find out this fun fact to this answer to my question. And then it became like, oh, I have reviews for these products. And it's like, and then both of those stopped working. It's like, oh, I'll go to a Reddit forum. It's like, okay, then that stopped working. And then it's like, I guess I'm texting my friends again. Like, what else am I doing? It's like, how do I find, like, I was trying to figure out, like, what should I do in Austin this week with like the team that were all here. And it was like, I looked online. It's like, well, nope, I'm not going to listen to any of that right now. I guess I'm going to message the 3 people that I know that lived here 15 years ago, and the 1 person I know who lives here now. And those recommendations have been great so far. But
and they're different than what Google was probably putting in front of you.
Google was sending me to, what was it, Yelp, TripAdvisor, and somewhere else. And then like the top 10X in Austin. About 50 of those.
Yeah. Go to the infatuation. Like, ooh, here's your favorite margarita spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
also, it's killed local news too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those, I don't want to name the one, like this one in like where I live in Toronto. And it's just like, they're just bought and paid for articles.
Yeah. It's native advertising all around.
Yeah.
It's
the native advertising without the sticker that this is advertising.
Yeah. It's we're desperate for cash. We'll write anything. Please give it to us. We'll pump your stuff. No, but it's like from a content creator spot too. That's what, like, obviously we distribute this on YouTube and Rumble and Bitcoin TV, and we send the podcasts out to RSS feeds. I think podcasting is significantly robust because of the RSS feed nature of it. But yeah, like I really am adamant about having my own site, and we don't host video there. We have the podcast on the site, but I think we're going to begin to host our videos there as well. But I think it is important as a content creator to own your own site and domain. Like that's why, I love Substack. I love everything it's done, but that's a trend where people are, it's just essentially Medium 2.0, where people are just using Substack to have Marty@substack.com. That's like a very centralized platform, where I think the trend should go the other way, where you spin up a ghost site. You own the domain, you own the files, you own the server at the end of the day if you want to, and you have complete domain over your content. This is just another one-off rant I'm going on, but I want you freaks to know, if you're creating content out there, Substack makes it very easy. I think you should spin up your own site. Use Ghost, use WordPress, whatever.
Yeah, and we're going to get someone to write a full guide on that on Mash. You're going to pay them like 10 cents. That's going to be their entire life. It's going to be dedicating to like creating that content. I'm just sort of just joking around, but like seriously, like imagine now it's like, here's like the 4 things you do. Like here's the DNS settings you change, because we know like all the stuff is like, you're spending hours trying to figure it out.
Yeah, DJ, our developer, luckily I have him, but I did not do it myself. It takes a team to figure it out.
Yeah. Imagine there was just there was an easy way that wasn't just a centralized service that did it all. And so it's funny you bring up Medium. Is people are asking a lot about like, okay, how, like, and we're not just doing written content. We're doing lots of other things, like lots of apps and tools per usage and stuff like that. But if we go back to Medium, people always ask like, oh, why don't you like integrate with Medium, or do not like as like we have the option to right now, but like, why don't you try and find a way to do that? Would that be a long-term plan? And it's funny because I think like their model I looked at them like, they need something like this that'd be way better, because their model of monetization, like all of these like micro distribution platforms, is, hey, we're going to get all the content here. Medium's funny because you don't actually know what's paid and what's not and what you're buying, which is like very confusing for consumers when they have this subscription thing. And then it's like, we're going to decide what metrics matter for how we're going to distribute that content. Is it like plays on Spotify? Is it number of reads? Is it number of claps? That's sort of like incentive wise, it's like a couple degrees away from, was that high quality? Did I really like that? And so it leads to all this content being juggled a different way, consumers not knowing what they're actually buying. And there's no direct relationship that says, hey, I can price my thing differently. Because what I'm doing is incredibly more valuable to a smaller group of people. So it shouldn't be like one clap is 1 cent or whatever it is. It should be, it's a clap's 10 on my site, but you can't do that. You have no control. And so they take away pricing control, relationship control, distribution control. And it helps lots of people, but I think overall for the whole system, it creates sort of like these lots of unintended consequences in terms of quality of content, what's written about, where it's showing up. It's just, it's not what people want.
Yeah, and it can be easily sybiled too, which is where you, like with the claps, especially if they're using that as a metric, like you can just have like pay some bot farm in China or wherever to go clap your article, but you got to make it expensive with Lightning Network. Yeah.
Well, people Medium, I think most aren't making enough money for it to actually work. But like you have clap bots. It's like review bots. And then the platform's like, well, like these got lots of claps. It continues to work. So they make more money because they think they're getting more reviews on those pages. And it creates this like sort of negative loop internally. That's the metrics will tell you a story that isn't necessarily the real story. Numbers like averages, they lie.
Yeah. No, and then we're seeing like there is even on Substack, and again, I'm a big fan of Substack. I actually just listened to the episode that their CEO or co-founder, Chris, did with Rogan a few weeks ago. It was very interesting. They're still a bit behind on the Bitcoin stuff, still thinking about NFTs and stuff like that for content monetization. Where I think just like sats make more sense than that. But Jordan Scatchell, who's been on this show before, he writes the dossier and he does that on Substack. He was complaining that Substack is doing the curation for their content aggregation, and they're favoring a certain type of writer over another on their platform. And so it would be great if you're a platform that's doing that, just to be able to wipe your hands clean and say, hey, we're actually just going to set the algorithm up in a way in which it reads its metrics, be very transparent with it. And this is what is going to raise content to the top of the site, is these metrics. And, it's a fair playing field as a content creator. And then you can see very visibly why certain content's being put on the page. And it's not some human driven curation behind the scenes of a particular, what's the word I'm looking for? Influence of like an individual at Substack.
Yeah. And then there's also the part of that where it's like, oh, we have this like AI machine that, we decide what it's prioritizing. It's prioritizing views. And then you get that incentive of views does not equal value. I think there's a way that I'm trying to think of how to make this like user friendly. So let's just ignore that for now. But centralized platforms don't do this, and it's been talked about a lot with Twitter conceptually, right? Why don't you allow anyone to build an algorithm? Let anyone decide the model that showcases things. Why not feed out that data and open it up if people agree to it? Why do you have to keep everything I know there's money in distribution, right? That's a huge part of the value. But I get to imagine a world where people can build on top of other things to create different discovery engines that work in partner with sort of the data layer or the app. It's like a layer on top of the application.
Yeah. That's where Twitter completely screwed up, is closing off access to their API.
Yeah. I read the book Hatching Twitter maybe a year ago. I don't know if you know it. It's sort of
I was not aware of it. No.
It's like the story of it's sort of like a drama of the story of Twitter being created and all the characters. Anyways, it's a fun read, but now I think about it, it's like that story was written about 10 years too early with all this going on. But it talks about the initial platform and how they a little bit about all the different, ways that people could build on top of Twitter, but also the existential threat for the company because other clients were just better than theirs.
Yeah.
So
no, and that's the weird time that we find ourselves in is you have this powerful ability via software to create all these experiences. Companies like Twitter, YouTube, that aggregate all this pure information, then they throw their UI and their filtering algorithms on top of it. But like, what is the model to just convince? Maybe you don't even need to convince. Maybe somebody needs to come to market that just does it and makes it better. The experience of aggregating your own curation. Like how do we get, like, because it seems like we're just in this transitionary period where arguably social media, the way it's existed for the first 12, 15 years, whatever it's been, is not going to be the way social media is interacted with moving forward because these new open platforms come to market.
Yeah, I hope so. Even just on like data freedom and like understanding what you're seeing, and how it's also the like, it's like the incentives being how much time are you looking at the newsfeed on Facebook? It's like that's not good for anybody. No. And it's sort of it's messed with the wiring of our brains.
Yeah, and then think about all the. I mean, I say this obviously. Twitter, Jack, Blue Sky. It seems to be their vision is to build something like that. But then, on top of that, I forget what I was going to say. Imagine how much time, like, literally, just like conversation here domestically and globally. So much time is spent arguing about the censorship debate. Like, how much time have we wasted in the last 3 years, particularly about like censorship and doing all that stuff? Just creates this natural friction, just the ability to censor on these social media platforms, and then it's millions, billions, probably collectively, of man hours of debate and wasted mental bandwidth that could have been focused on more productive endeavors.
Yeah, it's like follow the money, follow the incentives.
Yeah,
like it's hopefully we'll be in a better place.
Yeah, I hope so. I think somebody with 2 young sons too, and having them come up, and my oldest is like 2.5 now. Watching him begin to interact with technology, it's like, you can like see the slow steps towards him becoming able to interact with the internet. Not anytime soon, but I would like the internet to be at a point when he is interacting with it, where it's much healthier for his psyche and his development as a human being. And yeah, it's crazy times we live in now.
Yeah, it's like you can see any course to learn anything for free, and every single clickbait article at the same time, and like shock story just to get your attention. And it's amazing, like all the positive and all the negative at the same time.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It's again, it's fascinating being in this generation where we're just forced to deal with the problems that come with this technology coming into our lives. And we're monkeys at the end of the day, animals at the end of the day, and our brains are just trying to react to this rapid change.
So monkeys with machine guns.
Yeah.
It's like every single time we, it's like I would get the Jurassic Park quote. It's like, I always butcher it. It's like, we just asked if we could, not if we should. Right. It's, and at least for me, it's like I grew up with like a 28.8 modem, like when I was like 12, and then watching that to like, an iPhone came out when I was like in university or college, to like now the internet to what it is today. It's like, it's sort of wild. Like imagine like 10 years ago, it's like, I went traveling. When was it? 10, 15 years ago. Didn't even have a phone. Didn't go to like the internet cafe. I like found a random phone card every month, like just call and be like, I'm alive, and then keep on going. And now to today's world, it's like, where do I go? What do I do? These places, like I remember just lugging a bag and being like finding a hostel to stay at. And like, I'm not saying that experience is better than today's experience, but like that change is, for me, is very incredible. Like it's.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember summer going into my senior year of high school and then going into my sophomore year of college, Memorial Day weekend. Both summers, I had a bit too much fun, broke my phone. My parents were like, you're not getting a new one. So I went 2 summers, separated by 3 years without a phone. And luckily I was staying on this island working had a hot dog stand and had access to my friends like on the beach. Like, all right, what are we doing tonight? But yeah, that summer, those summers, I would walk around with a black book with all the numbers of my friends and my parents and anybody I would have to come into contact with. And like, if I desperately needed to call them, I'd pull out the black book and be like, hey, can I borrow your phone?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And we're not saying that everything was great back then either, but it's like just with the it's like with the phone thing, it's like I actually have to, like, every year I have to get off grid. Like, and then when I come back, I see it's like the first few days, like I'm like playing with a thing, like on the phone, like all of a sudden TV, it's like, oh crap, that like falling asleep when the sun went down and like not worrying about a thing. It's like, oh, now I'm up to like 2 a.m. Why am I doing this?
Right?
Like, why? It's like, I felt so good. I was healthy. Like, it took me 3 days for like, you know, like my body being like, why is there not dopamine hits every 20 seconds to like react to that? And it's just funny how like, it just sort of, it's a recalibration, like, oh, these do these things to me. And so.
Do you have a consistent off-grid destination or you switch it up?
I paddle a different river every year with a couple close buddies, like 6 of us usually. And so, it's canoe tripping. So it's like hiking, but with canoes, and you sort of start here, go there. And we're always looking for a new river. We basically have gone through all the like pretty advanced ones within, I'd say 15-hour drive of where we live. And so, yeah, I'm lucky to have like been able to learn how to do it growing up, be able to go do it, get the time. I won't say lucky to get the time. It was prioritized to be like, this is the time, no matter what, every year I go.
Yeah. Now, Rodolfo from Coin Kite, that's like one of his favorite things to do up in Canada is go canoe tripping and go off the grid in the summers.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's like, yeah, highly recommend it. Yeah, I've met him once, and actually that was the one topic of conversation I think we were talking about. I don't know if I'll remember. It was like at the Bit Devs in Miami in April during the Bitcoin 2022.
Yeah, Rodolfo's a hell of a character, a hell of a builder too. No, but I'm always hands up. I'm pretty online as an individual, and as I've had children, I've tried to be hyper cognizant of it and unplug, even though I'm still not great at it. My wife would say I still have a lot of improvement to do in that area. But in terms of like getting off the grid, I've had the ability to go to Costa Rica on surfing trips a few times in my life for like 2 weeks at a time. And you literally don't have phone service there. Like you said, like you wake up when the sun gets up, you go surfing, you eat, you hang out, listen to music, and the sun goes down at like 6 and you just hang, watch the stars, and like pass out and wake up naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're like physically active and moving around. Like there's just something about that. But then when you come back, it's yeah.
Yeah.
Now I want to go again. It's like I just got back and it's like, okay.
Any interesting things happen on your last trip? Does it ever get dangerous?
Interesting was I didn't know there were pelicans in like Manitoba, in northern Manitoba. We're like paddling up and like literally like it's some of the best fishing in the world. So people do take float planes out there in those areas. And so like paddling day, like I think it was day 1 or day 2. And I'm like, what are those birds that like mouths like just full of giant fish? Like there's like 25 of them or 50 of them at one point that I was able to get some cool shots of. So that was like really interesting. Danger, like let's say, I think there's a few things. Like one is that like where we go is like really remote, so it's helicopter evacuation no matter what. But like we're doing rivers that are fast water, sometimes moving rivers. So like you tip, like your stuff's going to keep on going. You need good rescue techniques. You have to like really scout and know what the rapids are. So if you're going to shoot them, if you're not going to shoot them, you're portaging around, you're carrying all your gear, and like you can slip and fall and hurt yourself and things like that. So like, I'd say like those are really the dangers, but if you know like what to do or like take your food out, like don't leave it beside the tent, because like a black bear where we go normally, unless you're going like out west with grizzlies, like they're not going to be a problem for you as long as they're like, they don't have like a mental issue with them.
Yeah. Black bears are more afraid of us than we are though.
Oh yeah. Chase one, like just yell at it and just get it. And especially because they're not humanized in those areas. So if you're like near a town, right? then there's a much bigger issue of having a bear problem because they're used to humans not actually doing anything, and they know where the garbage dump is, and they're just going to roam around until they get, and they know it's a source of food that there's no problem until they're sort of killed, right? But out in the woods, like where we go, like they don't see anybody. It's like, what are these things? They're just looking at us like, what are these things?
I need to get away.
Yeah, they're like floating on the water like with these like sticks. So
yeah, my sister lives in Colorado, and she sent me like Ring camera video of the bears getting into the dumpsters by her house up there in the mountains. And yeah, they're in the cities or the towns, they're not afraid at all.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, yeah, I guess it's like there's not really like I guess I don't feel in like that there's lots of dangers out there, but it's really just about like there's points where I felt very nervous because it was sort of dangerous, like lining around a rapid or like doing certain things, or like there's a tree burnout, you're like walking through like bouldery mud swamp type stuff, like to get around things, and it's like excruciatingly painful. Like at some points, like I had like my legs 2 years ago were like my ankles were this thick from like the amount of like unstable ground in like certain places. It was all bushwhacking. No one had probably paddled this thing in 10 years. We didn't know. That's a whole other story. But like there's certain places like, okay, there's this waterfall that's like 100 meters high and it's silent because the drop's so big and it's massive. And but like, it's there even though it's silent because like you're paddling and all of a sudden like there's no more trees and just sky. It's like, probably shouldn't go up that close.
You're going over 100-meter waterfall. But it'd be fun for the short free fall before your death. But
I'll go bungee jumping instead. I won't take that ride.
But again, it's a experience that not many people are losing touch with, is just being out in nature and basically being thrown to the wilderness, and you've got to take care of your shit, and if you don't, nature will eat you up.
Yep. Yeah, it's like, but at the same time, it's like, do I know to go like forage like my food and hunt my food out there and all that stuff? Like, no. Like if I was out there without supplies, I'm going to last as long as like my body can feed me, right? So like, but it's still a lot to skill. It's the point is just being out there and not all the other distractions, and you feel like you get more in touch with like human, like what us as animals are.
Yeah. What's that show? They usually drop people off in Canada, Vancouver Island, specifically. God, it's a survival show. It's on Netflix. I just watched the whole season. I can't think of the name, but they drop those people off, no supplies, no food, anything. Well, they have supplies. They get to bring 10 items, but watching that, I don't think they're literally erecting forts, cutting down trees, hunting bears and moose and stuff like that. I'm like, I would die in a week. I'd have to tap out.
I need about a year of training first. And we'll start with some of the supplies, like maybe some Stone Age supplies. Like give me the whole thing from a certain year. But not with like 10 items. No, it's not for me.
No. So back to Bitcoin though, being full-fledged into it and diving headfirst like 2 or 3 or 4 years ago now. Has it changed your perspective on the world? And were somebody really thought about the problem of money and the incentive systems that we had in our incumbent financial system, where you really focus on censorship resistance before you found Bitcoin? Was there something particular about the network that stuck out to you that really ignited that fire under your ass to dedicate your life to it?
I think so. I'll say my opinion and awareness of a lot of these things have changed dramatically since that time. And whether it was because of Bitcoin opening my eyes to those things, or a lot of like awareness of things that were happening all at the same time occurred. I would say myself personally, like I studied economics in university for a few years, and I thought it was like, this is just make believe. Like this is not how people behave. Like I get the concept of externalities and all that stuff, but it's like people like drawing these lines and pretending it's human behavior. It was like, and so I was aware of that. And I guess my personality is I'm sort of, people say I'm confrontational a little bit. Like I don't, not just for the sake of it. It's like, I try and like get down a little bit to the facts, but I'm hyper focused. So I'm not focused on a problem. I'm not really going to dig into it. I'll just be like, that's a thing. I don't know enough about it. I don't have time to dedicate it to it. So censorship resistance, I wasn't really, it wasn't like a top topic on my mind. It definitely is now. I think that's, maybe there's recency bias of what's going on and what I'm seeing, especially with the COVID stuff and being in Canada, and watching like all of our institutions sort of, lose all trust from most people. But it was also maybe the reading, like I read a lot of like Ben Hunt's work at Epsilon Theory and all about narratives. And so like, I could say I was always aware of lots of stuff was sort of, bullshit. And that there was usually an incentive behind it. But now it's sort of like a lot more is like been, I think, uncovered by spending more time reading about it. So I sort of look at like narratives and, how Bitcoin plays into it with money. And these are all like interrelating things with how the world works, where, when I was younger, I was probably a lot more naive or just maybe had less care about it.
Yeah.
And so if for Bitcoin and money, I would say my knowledge of monetary history is still not amazing. And like, but I'm not going to pretend I don't have enough time to spend like the years to like really know all the history. But I would say I went from like a 0 to 0 to 0.5 or maybe 1, but I'm not sorry, 0 to 1, but I'm not at a 10. And so I get it a lot more. And it actually Bitcoin opened my eyes to all of the problems. Like, it comes, sorry, I'm like on a rant, but it comes down to like incentive structures, right? If you can just print money and just give all these free things away, everyone doesn't make the logical steps to the other 3 things that are happening because of that. Oh, my money's now worth less. We're wasting money on productive resources here. They don't have to make trade-offs to get rid of bad programs. They don't have to restructure the laws and fix all these problems. And we have this like debt of like regulatory debt, budget, like decisions on where we allocate resources as society debt. And like, they've just been building up and are imploding. And I think it made me a lot more aware of like how these things interrelate with each other.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Biden just decided to waive $10,000 of student loan debt for everybody out there. Wants to put money back in people's pockets as we are experiencing this elevated inflationary period. Obviously, the student loan debt crisis here in the United States is a very pressing issue that many have been complaining about for some time. And yeah, I just did a rant about it that'll go up on YouTube later. But it's like you said, it's like compounding this debt that's been accrued from a regulatory and federal government intervention perspective, where you can argue the government probably should have never been giving out low interest rate loans to 18-year-olds to go get diplomas that are rapidly falling in value on the job market. Yeah.
I was, my first job at a school, I was a consultant at like a consulting firm. And one of our clients was actually a for-profit education company in the US. This is like 2008, 7, something like that. So like a Phoenix, but not one of those. And like watching the recommendations, like I'm a junior person on the team. I'm the guy who like creates the stuff to create the slides, right? And also part of like all the strategy decks and, working with the client. And like, we actually just realized at that point in time is like the government is and I'm in Canada advising like a US company on this. And I'm like perplexed at what's going on. I'm like how old was I? Like 21, 22, something like that. I'm now like thinking math on like what year I was born, but it's like, here's 4 segments of people that will get free loans that they can do these courses and do X, Y, and Z, and the government will pay for this. Like, here's the strategy. Here's what to go after. And it's like, I'd ask a question like, what jobs are they getting? And they're like, they're not getting jobs. It was like insanity to me. It's like, what's going on here? It's like, well, everyone needs to get a free college education, sort of. But they'll have to pay for it later, and they can never get rid of the debt. It's like, you sort of like, it was like, okay,
yeah.
This is what, and this is really smart people working in these industries, advising these companies what to do. And at these companies, we're spending all their time providing such a disservice to so many other people. It was lots of touch points like that, but it was a wild experience for me, like that young, just to see it straight up. I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah, this is soul sucking. And again, it's a terrible incentive structure. You're going to give out these loans, low interest. Here's the people that'll take them out. And then the colleges go, oh, since they're going to get these loans anyway, we can just jack up our prices, add to their debt. And now with like the forgiveness, the $10,000 forgiveness, I believe it's $20,000 for Pell Grants too. You're doing it with the intention of putting the money back in people's bank accounts because they're having trouble paying for things because inflation is high. But we still haven't fixed things on the supply side of the market where goods are energy, food, infrastructure, electronics are still relatively scarce because we borked the supply chains with the lockdowns, putting more money back in people's bank accounts to go chase scarcer and scarcer goods. So you're just going to exacerbate the inflation problem, which at the end of the day will probably be a net negative for everybody they're giving this money back to.
Yeah, it's inflation's for me like a really interesting concept because there's like how much does like let's say a tomato is $1 and now it's $2, but which then sort of is a step removed from I had X $1,000 a year and now I have Y $1,000 a year, and what's the difference? And like really what we need is like enough tomatoes at like a price level that everyone can have as many tomatoes as they need. And so like, let's say you had inflation, but every single person's like all their assets, all their incomes, everything had doubled. So everyone's on an equal playing field. And you double tomatoes. Okay. Everything's fine. But if you have like half the tomatoes, we sort of have a big problem.
Yeah.
And so like inflation, it shows up in a variety of ways, but I look at it as like, oh, you did asset inflation and then you gave all the rich people all way more money. But it doesn't change the fact there's not enough tomatoes for people because rich people can only eat so many tomatoes per year. And so I think the supply side is like this hidden thing which is sort of like, Bitcoin doesn't necessarily fix the supply side immediately, but like there's a lot of regulatory stuff that is from corrupted money that like we're just sort of ignoring. And it's I don't know. Inflation is a funny topic for me because it is also like in some ways narrative. It hides a few steps in the process.
Yeah, it's shrink. There's many. Inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon, but then like it gets exacerbated by the supply side of things too, which is again it goes back to the money. Fix the money, fix the world. That's why we have it out here in the studio. I think you can argue that the governments of the world would not have been able to lock down the global economy, which set off the supply side crisis, if they didn't have a money printer that they could turn on and airdrop money into people's bank accounts and bail out all these companies when they shut down the economy. Like, I don't think it's not funny. It's actually shouldn't laugh about it, but people do not understand the gravity of the supply side issues that we have globally. We're seeing it pop up in Sri Lanka. We've seen it pop up on the electronic side of things. We're going to see it pop up in Europe now with the energy crisis that's going there. Like this is a massive problem that's going to have dire consequences for billions of people, billions across the world. And it feels like we're just sleepwalking into like a catastrophe.
Yep. Yeah. Imagine politicians could have discussions on trade-offs and what we had to do.
Yeah, and here in the United States, excuse me, I got a scratch in my throat too. It's incredibly frustrating watching the Biden administration, particularly his energy czar, I forget her name, just double and triple down on this transition to wind and solar. When we can point over to Germany, like, look, what's going on over there right now? Like, they did this starting 2 decades ago. Now you're trying to force this here. We already have relatively high natural gas and oil prices, and grids are beginning to falter. And yet you're like doubling down on this. Like, do you not see the trade-offs playing out right in front of your eyes across the Atlantic?
Yeah. And it's, this is a space I don't know enough about it. Like I see it and like, I haven't, but it's not winter yet.
No.
And
prices
without the right knowledge on my side, I'm very nervous of what the consequences of this are.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is you have to, somebody building on Bitcoin and trying to make the world a better place via that network, you have to always stop and say, yeah, it is daunting to think about these large overarching problems that exist. We can't get dragged down by it, just like get stuck in the mud and let that consume your life. You got to build MASH. We've got to build this media company. We got to build the awareness of Bitcoin. Yes, things are going to get bad, but we've also got to work on the off ramps.
Yeah. It's like 95% of my time. It's like mash, and then 5% personal, and then like add in 10% is, we all work 100%, but like it's, and part of that is trying to see what's going on and sort of the big problems. But it's also, if I'm not going to change my effort and my focus and where I'm working to help people and make the world a better place and also build a business and, and all of those things, then it's like, if I'm going to start digging into that, it's like, I should shift and just be focused on that, but I'm not doing that. Right. Like, this is what I'm passionate about, what I'm doing. And not just a little bit passionate, like extremely passionate about, like I could see myself doing this for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And so, and so it's hard to like want to know what's going on everywhere, but then also realize like I'm distracting myself from the actual problem I'm trying to solve, which isn't that good. And I need to be successful at this thing.
Well, that actually brings up a good rabbit hole we can dive down. Like, what's it been like building something for yourself? Well, you're building it for many people, but you're building it yourself compared to working at a consultant firm in Google. What's it like being an entrepreneur compared to an employee?
Yeah, it's I'd say like, so I did start a travel business from scratch before this. I put them both in the same thing. Is like I think what's the difference? There's like, you always have to have, I think, to make anything successful, like an ambitious like mission, like really, really ambitious. And it needs to be like believably achievable. And I find that really, for me, that's like really fun to do. And maybe it's sort of like in consulting, I was an advisor. I wasn't creating anything. It was like cool to solve problems and learn a little bit, but it wasn't for me. At Google, I got to sort of be an internal entrepreneur, but wasn't necessarily on problems I was necessarily passionate about. But I'm also passionate about learning. And I saw that as an opportunity to, how do I become the best product manager and learn consumer things and learn infrastructure things. And so I was probably there too long. I was there too long. But I got that out of it. But now it's okay, have these skills. How do I, how do I solve that thing that I really, really care about, which adds a lot more extra drive, a lot of extra pressure, a lot of different responsibility, I'd say. Because internally it's like, oh, the company will take care of all these other things. I don't have that, right? No. It's like, I'm sorry about the like documentation for getting started guide. Like, I wrote that the other day, right? And which is fun, but it's also like building a team, and not just within a pool, within a company that's self-selected for those characteristics of what they want, but also a team that has like, I want to say like, it's not like a vibe, but a culture and a belief and a passion for, in a certain way of working and doing things. That's not just like, oh, they agree with me, but like pushes and prods in different ways, have different skill sets, and can make us all better as an entity is really fun. And so, yeah,
that is fun building compared to working for somebody. And it's, like you said, like we spun up, like I never thought this would be like a business. I thought it was just going to be like talking into the ether and people would listen maybe. And then same with the newsletter. And it has turned into a business where here in a studio, I've got a car over there to figure out how to pay them. And it's like, it's the nitty gritty things that you don't think about when you're an employee. It's not easy running a business.
Yeah. It's funny because I like forgot about the best part is like, we're creating solutions for like people that have never been possible for. That's like the creative energy is like, there's technical challenges, there's like user challenges, there's understanding. It's like always like a unique insight, a unique learning, a unique problem to solve, and like the trade-offs all day long. And I think some people like all this ambiguity or all these like hard decisions, some people like, it makes them really uncomfortable. For me, it's like, wow, we can like create all these things. Like, look at all the stuff we can do. We just have to choose and sequence, and we're never going to have all this information, but then we can have this, this thing and see if people love it. See if it meets like the 2 or 3 things we want to accomplish with it. And it's just doing that all day, every day. And then occasionally being like, I should probably, take a break for a day, do something completely different, because then 10 new ideas just pop in.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing enough of that. That's the biggest thing. It's like my 25-minute like walk to get a coffee and come back and like back to sitting down. I gotta do more to get out and let my mind sort of marinate in different things.
That's why I like about Austin. We had Ladybird Lake, that trail. It's a nice 4-mile trail. I try to do that at least 2 or 3 times a week when I'm here. It's like, it takes 45 minutes, and that's like the perfect amount of time you're walking, you're thinking, you're getting your mind away from things.
Yeah. I used to do it a lot more. I'd get like an hour or two, like walking or like rowing or doing stuff like that. Now it's like, I'm trying to get into CrossFit. This is one near me, and it's like I do at least once a week usually, but it's like, how do I get to 2 or 3? Like, it's like I gotta get that 5:30, and it's like I'm not off at 5:30. Like, what are we thinking here? The solution
to that is waking up early, and I've tried it before too. It's hard.
That's my work time. I'm like 5:30. I'm up. I like roll down the stairs, coffee going, and like those first 5 hours are like my most effective. I can't leave that. But I hear you. Some people are like, I have the time there, but it's like, I don't know. I've become a morning person.
Yeah. I'm being forced to become a morning person, because kids tend to wake up early, but I do like being a morning person. It is like, that's my most productive hours are in the morning after I feed the kids breakfast. I'm like, all right, emails, what are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. But one thing I wanted to ask you, considering your experience being a product manager at Google, and that's in coming into Bitcoin, it's something I'm incredibly happy to see. Because again, going back to the UX UI conversation, like Bitcoin has been here for 13 years, but it's been for most of its life a bunch of enthusiasts building and interacting with it and trying to provide solutions for everybody. And that's one thing a lot of Bitcoiners have talked about for years is like, all right, when is this intellectual capital from the incumbent tech sector begin to recognize what's going on in Bitcoin and begin focusing their efforts on this stack, which you've done. And I'm just curious to see, like you mentioned, talking to people at big tech companies that are interested in what you're doing at MASH. Like, do you see a transition, or not a transition, but do you see some of that intellectual capital beginning to get curious about Bitcoin? And do you see sort of a rush to this space to begin building it out?
I wouldn't say it's, so I think there's a few things. Actually, I want to hit one thing first, which is, I think a lot of the big tech talent that is at big tech now, like the ones we know, aren't necessarily the people that are going to create all these new things. I think there might be like a false signal there. It might be noise. If you're talking about like, oh, one of the first 10, 20 product managers at Google, that's a great signal, right? But they've already done 5 companies. So you want these entrepreneurs and these design thinkers that might come from anywhere. And so I'm not trying to knock like myself for being at Google. It doesn't mean anything, or everyone else is there. I just think there's lots of, we want the talent, right? And so I don't necessarily think it's all a big tech right now because it's been around so long, it's entrenched. The people that are there aren't necessarily the ones who are trying to recreate, create the new wheel, and I'm talking like I left 5 years ago. So it's been a while. And it's probably more bureaucratic and, more of a, I'll leave it there. But so now what am I seeing? There's been lots of people who have heard a little bit of what I'm up to at MASH with the team, and sort of heard about the Bitcoin lens, and that just want to talk to me, been interested, and like people I'd worked with in the past who are curious. And I think there's a lot of noise like for them and confusion. It's like, is it this NFT thing? Is it Bitcoin? What about all these other coins? They don't have that foundational knowledge. So I try, but they're curious. It's not like they don't know what it is. They say like, this Bitcoin thing's been around for a while. Like maybe I should check it out. And like, there's also some really smart people that maybe aren't directly related to me that are starting to look at it and asking about it at different places. So I think it's growing. But I don't know if it's exponential because I don't know what the base is. But there's definitely curiosity. There's definitely interest. I think there's lots of shiny objects that people get distracted by all the time. And but if compared to a year and a half ago when I started like really down this journey, it's night and day. And it's not because we have like the craziest news and press and they've heard about it. They're just like, they just sort of get that this is a new thing now. And they hear Bitcoin and they're a lot more interested, I think, than a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it hasn't gone away. It's like, all right, if it's not going away, it's going to be here. But then Lightning too, the things you can do with Lightning, it's just so exciting.
Oh yeah, I've never seen anything like it. Like that's what I tell everyone. It's like, you need to send money with Lightning, try different things. Like you just have to use it to sort of get it. And then people start realizing, and it takes a while. It took me probably a few months to like just sort of really wrap my head around it initially. Like I got how different it was, but like, what does this mean? And I still don't, I'm not gonna pretend I get it now. Like, I don't know when in 10 years Lightning will be online. No one does, but it's gonna be everywhere. It's sort of our bet. And I think if it's not, it's because there's Lightning 2.0. That's a better version of Lightning for Bitcoin. Like maybe there's some, some change there, but it's effectively, I'm talking about the same thing. Like Bitcoin in the web, sendable anywhere around the world, programmatically, with people's full control. Yeah.
Did you have a particular aha moment?
It was for Lightning or for Mash?
Both.
Okay. I guess I sort of teed that up. It's like, please ask me both questions, which I didn't mean to do until after I said it.
Asking yourself a leading question. I like it.
Yeah. It's my style versus like just answering a different question completely. I'd like you to ask this for me, please. Sorry, I'm like laughing at myself. So I think the aha moment for me, I'm trying to think, it might have been like, I think with Lightning, it might have been like I got a my node set up and I like set up a node and like sent money between like Blue Wallet and a my node. Like that I forget how I connected which software I use for my node. No, I think it does it generate an invoice in there directly? I haven't used it in a while.
They have L&D Hub, I believe, or
no, but I wasn't using like L&D Hub to like manage a backend. I was just like 2 different wallet software and like sats flowed between them. It was like better than Lightning Spin because I didn't want to like give my money to someone else. I'm like, yeah, I can play a game, but like that was really, I think it was something like that was like, okay, this is beyond just the reading about it, just seeing it. And then for Mash, I think what crystallized it is, like the thought process was when laser eyes started to become a thing. And I spent like, I can't tell you how much time to try and find this laser eyes generator tool. And like everyone had the one where like one eye was on top of the other one. They were both red and they looked like crap. And I'm like, can't someone I'll give someone 50 cents for like a little make 20 lasers, let me load up a photo and just move some shit around and make me the best avatar profile for Twitter. Right. Because I think it's funny, hilarious. And it's just like, yeah, I want to say I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm not like the Bitcoiner till 100K. Like I just want to have laser eyes to be like, this is what I'm about. Now, like join the mission. It's important. And I couldn't find one. And someone should just be able to build that. And if someone could pay them 50 cents, 25 cents, $1, whatever it was, which is never possible for, you now have 2 people who have a business that can make millions of dollars a year.
It's crazy to think about something as simple
like
as
millions upon millions if they like dedicated the time. Like, so we sort of started, that's sort of like the joke, but like our Mashing Monsters avatar generator, which I found out was making fun of NFTs. People thought we were shilling NFTs. It's like, buy your NFT. There's 1 trillion of them. They cost 2 sats, like, or 2 cents or whatever it was. It was a full joke, but apparently people didn't realize it was a joke. And so we were actually had in the pipeline to build a demo app for a laser eyes generator tool. And we have some designs. We just have so much to do. It's like, we can't distract ourselves. So if anyone wants to take those designs and build it out, we're ready.
But again, it's crazy to think something as like a joke could become $1 million business for somebody.
Yeah. Do you not think like this is a super deluxe laser? That's $3. This other one, the regular one, free. This one's like 50 cents. Like that's never been possible before.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. And then I started looking at all the different tools that are online. Like, oh, can I convert my image to use on profile photos? Please subscribe for $30 a month. It's like, I just want to use it once.
Yeah.
Like I'm not giving you $30.
Yeah. I think something like convert this Word doc to a PDF. Like, I'll pay 50 cents. Like instead of going into these like softwares that you don't trust.
Yeah. It's like going into like, you're getting some open source software, you're loading internally. Like you have to be a developer to use half this stuff. It's not easy. What was the other one? We have like the amount of spam phone calls we get. We have this like lookup phone number tool. Like, those lookup number websites. I don't know if the US has them. It's like you go through this process and you have to pay like $12.99, but they really charge you like $50. Like I've never done it, but like it's a scam. Mm-hmm. Imagine like someone actually made a legit one and it just pinged your phone being like, and it costs you 1 cent for anyone who wasn't in your contact list, up to $1 a month or 20 cents a month, whatever it was. It's like, that is a scam caller. Confirm or like done. Yeah. I'd pay for that service, but you're not going to get me to pay $10.99 a month.
No.
I'll pay as I use it.
Maybe 5 cents a call.
Yeah.
Here's a nickel.
Yeah.
Worth of sats.
So I'm just like thinking of like all these little, like, so once I saw it, it's like, it's just use case after use case that you just like, that I would just see. And actually, like the writing content one isn't one of the first ones, or like I think that's a trickier one to crack. Actually, I think there's ways to do it in lots of things, but like it's all these like imagine all these little tools that can make your life easier. Where it didn't have to be a fully VC funded 1,000-person company like Canva, it could be like a targeted, very specific use case application. That it's just this one thing. I want to convert, like you said, PDF to Word. I want the laserized photos thing. I want to know what this phone number is. I want to, store this one file for a year and then email it to this person. Like just like random things that can just be built. I want to take a screenshot that looks beautiful and does X, Y, and Z. And so, yeah.
Possibilities are endless, freaks. See, this talk gets me bullish. There's so much to build out there. There's so much to do. There's so much opportunity. I think the laserized thing could just be some college student who was thinking about going $50,000 more into debt for their senior year. And they can create this laser eye generator and be like, oh no, I have a job.
Yep.
I have a product.
I'm trying to think there was this one other one that was just like on the tip of my tongue and I forgot about it that I found that was like so funny, but it'll come back to me probably like the second it's like, and we're done and like, it'll be gone. It'll come right back. But there's so many things. Oh, games. Okay. Here's a few. Let's like if you ever look for like quotes, like you're like, what are the best Ernest Hemingway quotes or the lyrics or stuff? People could build apps for that. And like, they're not hard to build. If you could actually monetize them, like I want Ernest Hemingway quotes. I want these quotes. I want this, search them, structure them, have an entire search engine dedicated to like quotes or song lyrics or like
meme generators. When I have to like when I want to make like a Wojak meme or something, like I forget what the Wojak name is. And
meme generators were one of our first ones. Was like, I think I was like trying to cold email the owner of imageflip.com like a year and a half ago. I'm like, can you please like, he's like, you don't even have a website. I'm like, don't worry about it. We got you. I'm exaggerating. Like it was super early, but it was a product discovery call and I got like really interesting information from it.
How do they monetize ads?
They have ads. And then I think they have like a pro subscription thing where you can do a few extra things. Mm-hmm. But there's looking to be lots of stuff like that. All these fun little cool tools.
Yeah. No, like again, like we've been experimenting with this since 2018. The first thing we built was a randomized final thought generator, and it was 10 cents. Pay 10 cents, and you get a final thought. And it was very simple to build. DJ just built a script that scraped the words after final thought at the bottom of the newsletter, and was able to like generate. You pay this invoice, we'll randomly generate a final thought for you. And
that's awesome. I'm thinking like our first one was a Bitcoin price predictor, which is making fun of predicting the price. So I just like poking fun at things. It's like, I don't know what the price is. I don't believe like whatever. Halvings aren't real. Like whatever you want to say. I'm sorry if I offended anyone. It was like one is like should have listened to shouldn't have listened to Plan B. He changed the model again, or like just whatever. It was just like you can choose your own prophecy, being like, can you do 1 = 1 or like make it bullish or bearish? Throw on like Dorian or Hal or whoever you want as like an avatar. Anyways, I don't know if it's the same thing. It's like it's just like a gimmicky of like run something once for me.
We called the final thought generator. We called it the dime bag. Give us a dime. We'll give you a little trinket, which is a dumb final thought from one of my newsletters. And that's like people are still buying final thoughts these days, which we've probably made like over the course of 4 years, not a lot, but like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin at least. People just buying final thoughts.
And that means you got 10,000 people to try Lightning.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's like the more people that try these little things.
Or it's like one person who just wants 10,000 thoughts, even though there aren't 10,000 final thoughts yet. But
they're like, it's the same one. But I can't get a refund. I wish I could call Visa.
That's another thing, man. Like, how do you think about that? Like refunds, chargebacks as you're building Mash out?
People, so so a consumer like buying something, they need to have control and protection for their money. You can't just like have money just auto flowing. They need to have control and protections, but they also need to make it easy for themselves to enjoy stuff without being interrupted at any time. And so they need to be able to make a contract, like a budget saying, I'll spend on this pricing up to this amount for these things with this person. It's not taking their money. Just like, it's like an authorization. It's just like, it just says, it's like me saying like leaving $10 on here and being like, you can use it for X, Y, and Z, right? Actually, no, it's not leaving the money because they still have it. It's like, anyways, so I'm getting into technical stuff that doesn't matter. And so they should always be able to remove that authorization. But at the end of the day, it's up to them to decide which places and sites they trust where they set that budget. And if they don't trust it, they can say, yeah, I'll just buy it one time, and they can click to pay and just be in control of it. So there's other things of like, what happens if someone gets access to their device and they're logged in? What can they do? You can do things like enter your password again, or like do 2FA and things like that. That can help it. But at the end of the day, we're focused on like have $10 in a wallet. So that's less important to go too hard in, but we'll have that. But it's really about their control. But they're learning how to control their own money. It's very similar to having a wallet with cash and just leaving it on the table and walking away and trusting it. So like, I trust everyone here. I'll leave my wallet here, go for a walk, grab a coffee, come back. I'm not worried about you like taking $20 and telling me that people are buying your dime bags, over and over again. Right. Like, but I'm not going to leave it on the side of the street outside.
No, don't leave it out there.
Or in the bar, right? Like I don't trust, name the bar down the street, the patrons there that can take my money.
Shiners, there's a bunch of scumbags down there. Carside, that's a Bitcoiner bar.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Oh, mess with you. I mean, I go to Shiners too. It's,
is that the Shiner's Brock? Is that the beer? Is it a microbrewery?
Is it based off of Shiner Bock?
Shiner Bock.
It's a Pittsburgh bar. All the Yinzes hang out there too.
Fair enough. We used to have better beer north of the border. Now it's not the case, except for some of the microbrews are pretty sick. But that's now, I think, gotten way better everywhere.
We have too many preservatives in the beer here in the United States. Not good for you. But again, going back to MASH and content monetization.
Yes.
It's something that blows my mind too. Because right now, like podcasting 2.0, we get sats flows every day. And I just think, we'd like to move away from the ad model eventually if we can. It's just not there yet because there isn't this critical mass of people listening. If every one of our listeners used podcasting 2.0 and contributed a range of sats, we may be able to do it. But right now, I think on the Fountain app for Rabbit Hole Recap in the last 30 days, we probably had like 400 users interacting with podcasting 2.0 for Rabbit Hole Recap specifically. But at scale, like if this becomes the model, like a user listening, if somebody's sending 5 sats a minute, we have an hour and a half podcast, 4,500 sats, it's around $1 per episode. At scale, like for us, that would be tens of thousands of dollars per episode, per listener. And then you think about, and for the listener side, they're like, yeah, whatever, it was just $1. But in aggregate for us, it's like material. And then you replicate that with other content creators across the web. And it's like, holy crap, this is like a whole new economy.
Yeah, that's one attempt, right? And it's working in some ways. Like that's one try at here's a model that could work. But you could have, there's the like donate as you go or donate as you enjoy. There's the forced payment maybe for specials. There's the like extra exclusive behind the scenes hot take. There's like you can do like vote or like send pay to do a shout out, and like if the top 3 people get on and it's like a blind auction for the shout out. You can do all these like little things. You can have like vote on the topic or one of these 4 tough questions that the person that I'm hosting has to answer. I'm making this stuff up where they like, one is like direct engagement, one's community, one's for content, one's to listen, one's optional, or like have a special button that people can click and it's almost like the fan meter, but it's like the enjoyment meter. Then which part of stuff. Like I'm just not making these up. We've thought about them a lot, but like these are just the beginning things. You can do anything, and people are going to try all these new different approaches. So I think the fact that that's already happening is pretty incredible. And it's not just because Bitcoiners want to try it. That's not the reason why they're doing it. They're doing it because of the stuff you're doing. And so it applies everywhere. Just not everyone knows about it. And it's not easy enough for everyone to go down that yet. And so, yeah, I think it's really exciting. And we're going to wake up one day. I can't tell you if it's a year from now, 3 years, 5 years, or like 10 years. And it's like, well, we were too early. And it's all, we'll just see, like, there'll be so many things that we don't even know anyone who knows anyone that's thought of them yet.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine? Like, now I'm thinking of like TikTok generation. the big thing on TikTok and Instagram Reels is like these like the beats that get played in the back. Like there's these beat trends or like music trends in there. Like, I mean, what if you have like 13-year-olds creating like these beat trends and like they're charging like 5 sats for somebody to replicate their beat to play on their TikTok? And like you can have like millionaire like 12-year-olds just have access to this stuff and like build it. Like how does that change? We talked about school and university earlier. Like how does that change? Just like
100%. Like Sims mods, there's sites with like 500,000 people still downloading mods for the Sims and they get nothing out of it. Or like photographs that are tossed onto, I forget the photo sharing sites that are taking 70% of the funds, but they're from an artist that you really know. Why don't they have their own site so you know where to find it? You can pay them directly. They're not charging 70% and deciding the pricing. It's all subscription, then distribution. It's like maybe this awesome photo of like 2 office people high-fiving is worth more than the other one, right?
Yeah.
I'm joking because like of the stock footage, but it's beats, it's mods for games, it's different pieces of art that you like want to use, like the high-res wallpaper. That's awesome, right? And so all those things, they're going to flip.
The Lightning Network's going to bring back child labor, but the children are going to like the labor.
Well, they're making the money.
Exactly.
And it's a creative endeavor.
Right.
Right.
So think about what that does. Like, what if my kids turn like 10 and they're making more money than me because they're like know how to engage social media better and like create these tools?
I don't know if I'd call that child labor. I'd call it like they're building a business on their own.
Yeah. No, but like for the meme, like we're bringing back child labor. People are like, oh, that's terrible. And then like they dig into it. It's like, oh no, this is good.
Oh, I don't know the meme.
I mean, child labor is just a meme in general. Like you picture like children working in chimney factories or coal factories. And
fair enough. I haven't seen that one before. So I'm like, I don't know how to.
Or maybe
a statement.
Maybe a better way to word it is we're putting the kids back to work.
Okay, I'll laugh at that one. I'll laugh at that one. I'm trying to think of like, yeah, it's like if instead of like when I was like 13 or whatever, burning CDs and like weird mixes and selling them and like selling random things online, I could have made some beats and done different stuff. I probably would have done it. I'm just thinking about myself. It's like, and like accepting credit cards back then online was actually crazy. It was like 30% charges to like accept a credit card online. It's like 98, 7.
Yeah.
Just wild. And still the 3.5 to 5% plus all the other fees they don't tell you about. It's sort of bananas.
Yeah. Well, even, I mean, because of the open source nature of all this too, like since the kids don't have to ask for permission, they don't have to spin up an LLC. They don't have to.
Nope.
They don't have to get a bank account, get a credit card. Like, how does that change? Like,
yeah. And the computer and their pen can run the node.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but like, you know, it's like we think of how powerful phones are right now. Think about, you know, what they'll be able to do.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating. This has been a fascinating conversation, Jared.
I've had a blast.
I'm happy we did this. We're going to have to do it again. What should the freaks know about MASH that we haven't talked about yet?
We've just opened up our platform so people can sign up and start earning and get all their stuff set up, get a Lightning address if they want, and just, I think that's it, getmash.com. Just go to guides and there's like a start button and you can test it out. I'm trying to think of what else to show. You can follow us at GetMash on Twitter. I'm Jared NXX, JaredNXX.
We'll link to all this in the show notes.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll stop doing that. But I think the cool things that we've launched is we've launched some Bitcoin books where you like pay per chapter. I think they're cool to check out. And like, yeah, I think it's just take a look at what we have. We'll have some links on our site, and we'd love to get all your feedback and what you love, what you hate, and everything else in between.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. I think it's really going to push the space forward and bring the monetized web that we've been talking a lot about on this podcast to more people. I mean, it's been happening, but like I said, I'm extremely happy that somebody from a product standpoint of your caliber has come and focused your energy on this, because I think the experiences that you're building are going to make it easier, which is the biggest problem with Bitcoin. It's just not as easy as it can be.
Yes, I appreciate the compliment. We'll find out. Let's leave the jury out for what we do. Find out if I'm good, but it's really a team. I'll say it's the entire team. There's 8 of us working really, really hard, and hopefully I can help with some of our big decisions.
Oh yeah. Well, let's go have a fun week here in Austin. It's Wednesday. There's a lot of activities lined up between now and the end of the weekend. And, the vibes are high already here in the Commons.
Yeah, Commons is awesome. So it's my first time here. Austin, I love. I've been here, I think it's my 4th or 5th time, and I'm excited for BitBlock Boom and this whole week. It's exciting.
Yeah, we're gonna go enjoy ourselves, freaks. You enjoy yourself. Peace and love.